Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to be kicking off your year-long journey through U.S. history. Today, we aren't just looking at a boring list of dates and old documents, we're actually looking at the blueprint for your entire year ahead. We are going to explore how a nation was built from the ground up, full of incredible opportunities, really deep conflicts, and a constantly shifting identity. Okay, let's dive right into our roadmap for today. We'll start with a quick welcome and timeline, hit Unit 1 on colonization, move into revolution and rights, tackle Unit 3 on American identity, sweep from the Civil War to the modern era, and finally, wrap up with exactly what your role is in all of this. All right, Section 1, Welcome and the Timeline of America. So I want you to frame this entire course as an epic, unsolved mystery that literally spans centuries. Throughout this explainer, you're going to notice a huge recurring theme, how new opportunities almost always create deep, complex conflicts. And we'll be tracing this massive push and pull across 11 huge units this year. To give you a real sense of scale here, we are covering a massive span of time. We start way back in prehistoric North America, long before the 1600s. From there, we hit the 1700s, where colonization sparks a brand new nation. Then into the 1800s, navigating the really intense division of the Civil War and Reconstruction. And finally, the 1900s and 2000s, tracking America's explosive rise to global power and all the complexities of the modern era. Moving on to Section 2, Unit 1, Colonization and Conflict. Let's zoom in on our very first case study. The big essential question here is, how did colonization create both new opportunities and deep conflicts? Notice how we're not just asking what happened, but how and why. The pursuit of religious freedom and wealth brought incredible opportunities for some folks, right? But at the exact same time, the horrific realities of transatlantic slavery and the colonization of Native American lands created devastating, world-shattering conflicts for others. So over these first 3 weeks, here is exactly what we're aiming for. You're going to need to explain how the colonies developed, analyze the crucial difference between historical myth and actual history, connect the devastating reality of slavery directly to these early colonial systems, and honestly, the most important part, you'll learn how to use actual historical evidence from primary accounts to back up your claims. Because here's the thing, history isn't just a list of absolute facts. You really have to analyze the tension between myth and history. This means questioning those comfortable stories and the mythology that gets passed down from generation to generation, and then holding them up against what the historical evidence actually proves. You're basically going to become history detectives. Next up, Section 3, Revolution and New Rights. Let's see how this builds, because all those bubbling conflicts from colonization, they eventually boil over into a full-on fight for a completely new nation. But, the American Revolution didn't just happen overnight. We start with heavy taxation issues and a lack of representation, which essentially sparks the Declaration of Independence. But winning a war is really only half the battle. After that comes the incredibly difficult task of actually drafting a constitution, which immediately forces this brand new nation into some really deep, unsettling compromises, particularly over the institution of slavery. And that brings us to the central tension of this unit, which is just profound. While this new nation was fundamentally founded on these amazing ideals of liberty, there were immediate, glaring contradictions. We have to really examine who actually got the rights of citizenship when the country was born, and who was intentionally left out of that promise. All right, Section 4, Unit 3, American Identity. This whole rights debate triggers a massive 4-week deep dive where the young United States tries to figure out who and honestly what it actually is. Think about the wild reality of a country growing rapidly through westward expansion. You might know this as manifest destiny, which was this widespread belief that expanding across the continent was totally justified and inevitable. But while it's expanding, it's simultaneously tearing itself apart at the seams. How do you form a single unified identity when everyone has a totally different vision for the future? To really wrap our heads around this, we need to look at two massive, kind of invisible forces. The first one is nationalism. Simply put, this is a sense of national pride and unity. It's the unifying force that binds a country together. So things like manifest destiny and those shared periods of economic boom, they acted like glue, trying to unite all the states under one shared, overarching American identity. But pushing right back against that glue is the opposing force, sectionalism. This is loyalty to a specific region, like the North or the South, rather than the nation as a whole. As the country expanded, completely different economies, varying social reform movements, and the expansion of slavery created these incredibly deep regional divides that constantly challenged that national unity. And this brilliantly illustrates how early America was essentially an intense, incredibly high-stakes tug of war. On one side, you have nationalism pulling the country together, and on the other, sectionalism threatening to tear the whole thing apart. This specific tension, it pretty much defines the entire 1800s. We actually see this identity crisis pop up immediately with our very first political parties, the Federalists and the Republicans. So if you think arguments over how much power the national government should have versus the states is a new thing, think again. Debates over what the true identity of an American is have literally been around since the very beginning of the country. Moving into Section 5, Civil War to Modern Challenges. So, let's zoom back out for a second and look at how these early identity crises absolutely explode in the back half of your curriculum. Units 4 and 5 bring us through the brutal violence of the Civil War, Reconstruction, and the tragic dispossession of Native Americans right in the middle of rapid industrialization. Then, in Units 6 through 8, America steps onto the global stage through imperialism, navigates the crushing Great Depression, and fights in 2 massive world wars. Finally, Units 9 through 11 drop us right into the modern era, dealing with the Cold War, the intense fight for civil rights at home, and all the complex challenges of our new century. So the crucial point here is that America is constantly trying to balance its massive global power with its very real domestic struggles. Just to give you a quick idea of our pacing this year, we're going to spend 11 solid weeks really just building the foundations of the nation. Then we dedicate 7 weeks to the major conflicts of the 19th century, before spending a massive 20 weeks analyzing the modern era. We focus so much on this because the past is absolutely essential. It directly built the modern world you're living in right now. And finally, Section 6, Your Role in History. So, why does all of this actually matter to you, sitting in a 7th grade classroom today? Well, because here is your mission for the year. You are not just here to memorize a bunch of boring dates for a multiple-choice test. No way. You are here to question historical myths. You're going to analyze vastly different perspectives using real primary evidence. You're going to connect the fierce conflicts of the past directly to the world you see around you today. Ultimately, you're here to understand exactly how a nation's identity shifts and changes over time. So, I'm going to leave you with this final, hopefully provocative thought to take into your very first day of class. If American history is basically an ongoing, centuries-long struggle over identity and the rights of citizenship, what role will your generation play in writing the very next chapter? I really hope you're ready, because it's going to be an incredible year.